What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
The Dollop is a bi-weekly American history podcast where every week Dave Anthony, owner of things, human of sorts, reads a story to his friend Gareth Reynolds, who has no idea what the topic is going to be about. The simple premise that is the Dollop, which is my podcast breakdown this Sunday, where if you are looking to do a podcast sharing different types of podcasts, how they're produced, what goes into making these podcasts, I'm speculating a lot of the times, but I've been doing this a while, so I think I'm going to be pretty close on a lot of these. Last week was Ari Shaffir Skeptic Tank. This week is the Dollop, and it is similar production-wise in a lot of ways to Ari Shaffir. It generally is only two people on mic, Gareth Reynolds, Dave Anthony. Sometimes they do have a guest. They do a lot of live shows. That's generally when they'll get a guest on, is for a live show. And they have a staff. They have people that research all these stories. And they're not just American history stories. They do a lot of shows in Australia, so you get to hear some Australian history, which is always interesting. But American history in general is just ridiculous. Like, we come from, like, the people that we came from, if they existed today, you know, they'd be riding a different length bus. Probably, a lot of them. Like, they believed in just crazy. It was like, you can tell how much science has improved and evolved us as a culture, as a species over the years, because when we had a lot less of the technology and a lot less science and a lot less information, people just believe. I mean, people still believe in crazy stuff like flat Earth. I mean, crazy belief is still out there. Cults are still out there. But just they would do just crazy things. Like one of them, which was in the movie The Nun, which is not a good movie, but it was interesting that they had this part in the movie. Like, when they would bury people, they didn't always know if they were actually dead or not. Because sometimes people, like, maybe they had a concussion and they were knocked out and they're like, well, let's bury him real quick. Or, there was like crazy things where it's like, or comas, where people would wake up buried. So they would have a string that would go down to your coffin that would lead up to a bell that's up on your tombstone, and you would have to ring it. Like, so there's stories about that. There's stories. The Rube is an amazing one. If you want to get educated on kind of current situations, they did an amazing two-parter on Donald Trump. They just did an amazing two-parter. I think it was a two-parter on, the dude from the Maverick. He was almost going to be president with the chick from Alaska. God, what the fuck is his name? John McCain. The John McCain. It's just not a two-parter. It's just a single one. That's a recent one. They're not all political. I mean, politics are definitely part of. You get to hear stories about different presidents and different politicians and all kinds of different people, but also just regular kinds of people. People that invented things. You get to hear the origin story of some crazy stuff. But it's an interesting one. Gareth doesn't know what the story is. I don't know most of the stories either. I'm ignorant with most history. So it's definitely an entertaining way to learn, because they are educated with what they're talking about, which is nice, which is good. And they're not bullshitting you like me. If I start doing a history podcast, don't listen to it. It's not going to be informational. It's not going to be accurate. Okay? But while Dave is reading the story to Gareth is, he's hilarious. He's really good at, like, he's good. He has a handful of accents that he can nail. He's really good at improv, really quick, really funny. Love it. He decorates, he colors the story so well, adds so much to it, and keeps it light. And the fact that he doesn't know the story going into it, you get to see his honest surprise and reaction, especially some stories when he realizes the turn of what the story's about is always a fun moment as well. But they do also live shows, which you can go see. I went and saw them in Denver with my friend and former co-host Keith Spurlock. We went and saw their live show, and it was amazing. We got wasted, and it was a lot of fun. I've had the pleasure of Gareth has been a guest on the podcast that I used to do with Keith, the Inspired Disorder podcast. He's been a guest many, many times. I've had the pleasure of spending time with him, hanging out with Gareth, and he is one of the funniest humans I have ever known in my entire life, and a good dude. And he works his ass off. This motherfucker, I mean, they both do. Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds work their fucking asses off. Dave Anthony was a writer on Marin, and he also, acted a little bit in that. Gareth had a little cameo at the very end of that series. But Gareth is written on the newest season of Arrested Development. He's produced a bunch of shows. He's acted in a bunch of shit. He does stand-up everywhere. He's doing a lot of shit. He's doing so much stuff. It's crazy. It makes me feel lazy, which is good. I need people around that make me feel lazy, to push me to work harder, which I don't know how hard he's working. He writes with a friend of his, which is awesome. But yeah, Gareth and Dave, it's a great duo, and it's an amazing podcast if you're looking to get into history. But yeah, production-wise, so it's two people. They record it. There's no video unless they're in studio at the All Things Comedy. They're part of the All Things Comedy Network, and they'll do video then, and maybe you'll see some slides and pictures of what they're talking about. But it's primarily an audio podcast, 2 mics, maybe 3. They do it live, so you get the live performance, so the audio quality does vary depending on the venue. But then when, generally when they're using I would imagine H4n, because they just need 2 mics. They may have an H6, and their original intro was made by Vicky Pezza. I'm not sure if the updated intro has been as well. But Vicky and Gareth used to work we're both on the Naughty Show back in the day, which is a podcast hosted by Sam Tripoli. And Gareth was kind of the sideman on that, and then Dave stole him. Well, Naughty Show ended, and I think Gareth was already doing, the Dollop started in 2014. Comes out twice a week. Sometimes Gareth reads a story on a reverse Dollop. Sometimes they have small-ups, which are just short little stories, but they are crazy. And it's just so unique because you have to have that chemistry between Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds. If Gareth isn't there, it's a completely different show. If Dave Anthony's not there, still a different show because he's kind of like the straight man, and Gareth is the fucking psychopath, the degenerate. Kind of. Sometimes they trade off. They're both comedians, so it's just so good. Usually the episode lengths, about an hour and a half, not too long, but they are on the longer side of podcasts, which is good because generally the stories, and it's a type of podcast that you can't just casually listen to, like conversational podcasts where you can kind of not pay attention. This is definitely more of an audiobook because you are following a narrative, but it's so entertaining that it's not really hard to maintain concentration on it. But definitely go check out the Dollop. Subscribe everywhere. Let me do their dates real quick. They do a live show, and they are going to be in a few places pretty soon. In December 13th, they're going to be in Dallas. December 14th, Austin. 15th, Houston. That's my birthday, Houston. If you guys are out there, go check them out. January 18th, Phoenix. January 19th, Los Angeles. February 8th, Philadelphia. Atlanta, February 9th. So that's all of their shows. Go to dolloppodcast.com is their website for links to everything. This show that you're watching now comes out every day. Subscribe everywhere podcasts are found. Binge the show over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Inspireddisorder.com is my website where you can buy all of my artwork and my shirts. You can save 50% when you use coupon code THANKS18 through the end of the year. I'm at Ray Taylor. Have a great day, everybody. Peace out!